The Alberta Electric System Operator, or AESO, says the province is out of power for data centers. AESO also says it allocated the last of its capacity to 2 data centers being developed near Edmonton. 37 other centers are still waiting in the queue. So what does all this mean for electricity in Alberta? Ian Niebuhr is with us to explain. He's the Managing Director and Head of Energy Transition Research at Enverus Intelligence Research. Good morning to you, Ian.
Good morning.
So no more capacity to give out. What are we talking about here?
Yeah, so back in the spring, I guess back in June, the province earmarked about 1,200 megawatts that was available for data centers. And this was really an initiative to try and make it easier to add these large loads to the grid quickly and efficiently, but also without sacrificing reliability. So that 1,200 megawatts was pre-identified as something you could do without having to do a ton more work, a ton more assessments. Obviously, we could do a lot more, and I'm sure we'll talk about it in a couple minutes here. But yeah, that's the first 1,200.
Right. Well, let's get into it. So the 2 data centers near Edmonton took up that capacity. There are another 37 in the queue. How much energy did data centers take in the first place?
Yeah, so it really scales with the size of the data centers. I think the way to think about it is a year ago, we were looking at about 5 gigawatts of data centers in the queue. Today, we're closer to 20. If you think about Alberta's grid as a whole, so everything we all consume, we're probably about 12 gigawatts at a peak. So, the order of magnitude here is larger than the entire scale of demand today.
Okay, so how do we meet that, or do we?
I think that's the big question, and it's not unique to Alberta. Every jurisdiction we look at across North America is challenged by this. We've probably all seen the headlines in the news from Microsoft, Google, et cetera, trying to build out for AI. Data centers are the backbone of that, and everywhere you can put one of those, they're trying to find a spot for.
How quickly can and is Alberta adding to the power grid?
It's kind of slow going. I think we're certainly adding resources. Keep in mind, historical demand growth was maybe 3-5%. So to see this sort of incredible tidal wave of demand come all at once at a time when we're trying to transform the grid away from coal, which we've retired over the last couple of years, transform and consume more renewables, there's a lot of change happening in the grid. So, it's another big pressure on the AESO to try and manage this and make sure it's efficient, reliable, and also affordable for all of us.
Yeah. So the province has said it will prioritize centers that bring their own power.
Yeah.
How many companies are doing that?
We look at host of projects across North America. It's a very common theme today where I think almost every grid is running into the same bottlenecks. The fact that Alberta had spare capacity to allocate like this was a pretty special and unique situation to start with. So that is unusual. The more normal case is now we have constrained grids that have to find new power. Bringing your own power is one of those solutions, and I think many of the projects are looking at ways to do it. It's not an easy answer. It's hard to get the equipment to enable that, but certainly if you can bring power, get access to power, that's sort of the unlock for these data centers.
So what would be an example of how they would do that?
There's all kinds of crazy ideas and actual ideas, right? And it could include if you had access to gas-fired turbines that you could build power plants, great. The backlog for those equipment is maybe 5 years right now, so that's hard to do. You see everything from, small Cummins diesel generators being used, hydrogen systems, SMRs. And so really anybody who's got a power system is seeing incredible demands on their product.
SMRs are small modular reactors.
Yeah, so small nuclear. And you've also seen co-location with some of the big nuclear fleets down in the U.S. as well.
So does this, how much is this driving innovation around generation? This data center demand and the big bucks behind data centers as part of it?
Yeah, I guess two steps to that. One is what can you execute in the short run? And so a lot of the pressure is what can we do right now, which made Alberta very attractive with those 1,200 megawatts. The challenge is if you're going to add scaled resources over the next 5 years, that takes some time and probably you're working with known technology, and it's difficult from a supply chain perspective. As you reach further out, opportunities like nuclear, geothermal, and other technologies where that innovation is also taking place because these large project developers are thinking a decade or more out. So it really depends on what time frame you're thinking about.
Now, you said if you're trying to build a gas plant, the parts and materials are 5 years out. Is that like a supply chain delay? Or?
Yeah, and like just the turbines themselves are booked out. And so it's because this boom is not unique to Alberta. It's sort of a global phenomena and increasingly a U.S. phenomena as well. And so everybody's trying to grasp for that type of resource. And it's just the reality is the manufacturing capacity is not set up to have this kind of rapid expansion today.
Right. Now, if it wasn't for data centers, thinking about capacity and supply and demand in the province, if it wasn't for data centers, would we need extra capacity?
I think ultimately the forecast still points to load growth in the province just from population growth, economic growth, new industrial activity in general. So the trajectory was still up and to the right. I think the big difference today is that was more on that 3-5% growth rate trend, not, hey, can we go and double your grid in the next 3 years, which is what the data centers would like you to do if you could do it.
What does it mean for the cost of electricity for you and me?
I think short run and with this initial program, the idea was to work within existing capacity, so there wasn't major investment there, and critically did not require transmission upgrades. And so in terms of limiting the costs that ultimately get spread across consumers, this first initial 1,200 megawatts is should be pretty cost neutral. Certainly as you consume excess capacity and get to these sort of extreme events, there's some risk of volatility there. What will be interesting is what happens with the remaining 3 dozen projects that are also trying to get through, will also need new capacity and likely also need infrastructure upgrades along with them.
Yeah, so there's capacity to generate. Then there's moving it around. There's transmission. What's the transmission part of this data center pressure?
It can be massive depending on where you want to locate it and how it relates to where the generation is. And that's part of the reason why only 2 projects were allocated capacity out of the 30 or more that might have. They didn't need that kind of infrastructure build. So,
okay, let's go out on this. What is the outlook on adding these potentially dozens more data centers to Alberta? Is this going to happen? Is it a 5-year, 10-year? Is it what? Yeah.
It's a great question. I think the short answer is we don't know, but it's predicated on a couple things. One, what are the set of rules that Alberta will set for adding large loads like that and how those costs will get shared across the different communities and stakeholders? So that's one, and I think every community is trying to deal with this, not just in Alberta. Second is how fast can we build generation capacity? And some of that is access to the actual underlying supply chains, but the other part is also what can we navigate from a political and policy standpoint. There's obviously pressure also in Canada to reduce the carbon emissions. Gas-fired generation is a favored source for these projects.